Hi everyone, Kyriakos Iliadis here. Um, I want to talk about a question that seems to get asked a lot. People come and ask, we deal with a lot of people with properties. So we deal with people with commercial properties, residential. We network a lot in the property market. And the question always, when a person's buying his first house, and they're always saying, but there's so many things on the internet, and there's so many motivational talkers that talk about should you buy, should you rent, never buy, always rent. Look, at the end of the day, everyone's different. Buying a house is always an emotional decision. So, everybody wants to own their own house. They want to be able to say that it's theirs. And um, when I get asked that question, should I buy, should I rent? I just say one thing: can you afford to buy? That's basically what it is. Can you afford to buy? I see so many people buying a property, and the financial burden becomes so big for them that eventually they start to cut so much of their lifestyle that makes them so unhappy to be able to accommodate the house payment. Now, buying a house, you need to give it a lot of thought. There are maintenance, there's your rates and taxes, um, interest rates do go up, and then it's a commitment. The majority of people who are buying a house is buying it over 20 years plus, but it's 20 years, the average people buying. So the bottom line is, I always say, can you afford to buy it? Now, I always say, wait a year, wait 2 years, wait 5 years until you're financially ready. The biggest thing that always I tell people is, remember that you're going to have to pay this over the next 20 years. Now, nobody can predict the future. But one thing is that you do need to remember all the time is that if it puts you under financial burden, it's going to make you unhappy. You know, when I'm going to buy something and I know, I've got to take the punch, and it's 6 months or a year, and that is the sacrifice that I'm making, and I know that within a year it's going to be mine. That's a different story. But we're talking about 20 years now. And eventually you start to become unhappy. So I say one thing, and I just go and always ask yourself the question: can you afford to buy? First, make sure that you're financially in a good position to buy a property. There's no shame in renting, nothing at all. Most of the time, it is actually a very good decision because it allows you to save money. Because the more money you can put down, the less your payment is, and it actually helps you on the long run. So, do I buy? Do I rent? Can you afford to buy? The other thing is that you need to ask, you're working for a salary. If for some other reason there are retrenchments, are you in that position to be able to keep that payment? I take it, for instance, our unemployment is climbing. So I see a lot of the times the high end sector have got a very big mortgage to pay, and eventually they get retrenched, and they got to work a couple of months. And when I say work, they really got to put out those CVs and do interviews, and they don't get the work that they were hoping to get with the salary that they used to. So they got to take a cut in salary. Now what happens is, when you in a position that you're going to struggle to pay your mortgage, you're going to end up having to sell that property at a discounted price. So I'm always saying, make sure that you have a couple of months, 6 months worth of payment. Other people say 2, 3. I always say, have 6 months of payment aside. Because if you've got 6 months and it does come to a stage that you do need to offload this property, it gives you enough time to try and get the price that you want. So also be careful. Everybody wants to buy these nice places, and they see the pictures and it's the newest kitchens and that. Again, are you in that position? Ask yourself. I see so many people fall into financial difficulties when retrenchments, interest rates go up, and eventually the guys are, selling them at discounted. And the guys with money are sitting on the sidelines just waiting for their price to come in, and then they're buying it. Or they're just giving you the offer, and eventually you feel it's an insult in that, but you eventually end up taking that. So if you can afford, buy. If you can't afford, don't buy, just rent. A house is an emotional decision. But sometimes you got to look at what makes business sense. Because if it's going to put you under financial difficulties, you got to ask yourself, is that going to make you happy? If you are starting up, you're planning to have a family, you've got school fees, university fee, you need to account for all those bills. Remember, you're driving a vehicle. It's got an X amount of life expectancy. The way prices of vehicles climb up, eventually within the next 5-6 years, you're going to be paying about 40-50% more on whatever your car payment is. Are you going to be in the position? You see, that's where everyone makes a mistake. They sign their contracts. They know that their payment is, for argument's sakes, X amount. Yes, interest rates will go to this, but this is what my payment. Yes, but your cost of living doesn't work according to that. Because vehicles are climbing, school fees are expensive, cost of living, food, it's expensive. I'm seeing more and more people in the supermarkets these days with a calculator than ever before. Because they now are starting to look at what they can afford. So, can you afford to buy, or should you go and rent? That is for you to decide. We can all on the other side give all this wonderful advice, but we don't know what your financial position is. So the bottom line is, if you can, make sure that you do put money aside for a rainy day. That means if you lose your job, can you continue paying it? If, for argument's sakes, you're in a business and your business takes a knock, are you in that position to continue to pay? You have children. Children have unexpected expenses. If you do the numbers, you will not be disappointed. But I see so many people under so much financial pressure these days because they haven't gone to do their numbers. There is no shame in renting. Nothing at all. But there is a shame in losing eventually everything because you didn't go and do your homework. Yes, things happen in life. You do lose your things. That happens. But what I am saying is, don't go and make an emotional decision. Make a business decision. Let it make sense. And that is how you avoid unhappiness. So, do you rent? Do you buy? You're the only one that can answer that question. My advice to you is, if you do not have money put aside for your rainy days, and if you're just starting up with a family, I would first make sure that I'm in a comfortable position to continue that lifestyle before I put a house or an apartment or a townhouse as a burden. So from my side, you need to make that decision, nobody else. And make sure it's a business decision. And remember, there's always tough days ahead. Always there's going to be tough days. So make provision for those tough days and take the emotions out of it and make a decision that you know that you will not end up being disappointed 5 years down the line or 2 years or 1 year. Cheers everybody. Kyriakos Iliadis.